Okay, here we go. We're live. Welcome, everyone, to Luminous by Nature. My name's Forrest Wilson. I'm here with my co-host, Jeff Vanderkloot. And today we have two guests. This is our first episode we're doing with guests, which is quite enlivening for us. We're here with Eduardo Ortiz and Enrique Kaufman. The three of us, Eduardo, Enrique, and I, are in Cancun right now. The four of us are in Mexico. Um, and today we're going to be exploring from entropy to syntropy. So we'll dive into that in a moment. Before we do, I just want to welcome you all, our live stream viewers and listeners. We also record these and post them as podcasts and recordings. So if you're tuning in another moment, just want to welcome you and have you here with us in our hearts in the field. Welcome, Enrique. Welcome, Eduardo. Good to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Pleasure
Thank
to
you so
be
much,
here.
Forrest. We're very honored to be the first guests.
yeah, absolutely. So, as those of you who've tuned into earlier episodes know, this is Luminous by Nature, and these calls and explorations are facilitated from the healed and awakened world. What that means is that you are invited to receive this podcast from the dimension of being we all have access to, where we're already healed and awakened and whole, right here, right now, in this moment. I'm speaking to you from this place so you can feel me, not just hear the words that I'm saying, but feel where I'm speaking to you from. And I just want to invite all of us here together, the listeners and viewers, the four of us here for this recording, to just take a moment and have a breath and relax and allow ourselves to sink into our true nature, our luminous nature. So thank you all. It's good to have you here with us. Over to you, Jeff.
Thanks so much, Forrest. Well, let's see what is arising in the healed and awakened world. These are two very important words, entropy and syntropy. And today we are blessed to be with Eduardo and Enrique, who know the deep dimensions of what these words mean. And in my explorations and meditations, I have appreciated how far the physical sciences have come in terms of understanding structure and organization, order and disorder. And I'm aware that the physical sciences have not caught up with the wisdom sciences in terms of really understanding what's available in life. So the teachings of entropy suggest that, well, in some ways, it's a downward spiral to increasing or greater and greater disorder. And the wisdom sciences say that may appear to be the case. And of course, there is transformation and cycles of decline and regeneration. So let us not forget about the upward cycle, the upward spiral of syntropy, where new systems and solutions are possible, new orders of organization, higher order systems emerge where living systems regenerate, and not only to a previously experienced state, but to altogether new levels of luminosity. And so, in the context of the healed and awakened world where we are now, the upward spiral is much more apparent. And indeed, we can choose to make a deep decision to step into this upward current. So I invite all of us who are on this call, who are listening live, who may be listening and watching later, to perhaps even literally take a step into this current of syntropy. Thank you.
Oh,
Oh, that is a beautiful introduction, my friend. Thank you so much. It's a, it's also nice to, and the reason why we started with Syntropy for this first communication is that thermodynamics is the way to go because we are energy flowing continuously into different energy states, into many different forms of being that are energized by what's already here, what already has been here forever. Because energy, if we go to the first law of thermodynamics, cannot be created or destroyed. So that means two things. It's always been here. And the second thing, which is the amazing thing for us that detonates all of our business model, all of our investment model, everything we're doing, is that if it cannot be created or destroyed and it's in constant flux, then it must have symmetrical manifestations. So something breaks, for example, or falls, or anything that happens, there is energy moving in that whole system, and the net energy that was in the system to begin with is going to still be there after that event happens. It's going to be in many different ways, in many different forms, and it's going to, in its wholeness, it's going to be an energy state, a thermodynamic state. The beauty of this, and this is where I think that understanding the second law of thermodynamics, which is the one that talks about entropy, in this decay that you were talking about, it seems to us that the definition of entropy seems a little bit industrial revolution for our taste, which means that it's focused on this decay because the energy being lost is not available for mechanical use for work, but it is available for many other things because it's symmetric to whatever energy was there before. It's just in a different energy state. And the part that blows our minds when we like shift between the first law of thermodynamics and the second, and we talk about symmetry and entropy, is that there is a trick to entropy, which is that, okay, whatever interaction happens is going to lose some energy. The interaction is never going to have 100% energy within that interaction. It's going to flow into other parts of the system. But if that system has reflective surfaces, that energy reflects back. And this may be actually the beginning of everything, because if you feel yourself in a void and you're just one dot in that void, you pretty much don't exist. You need to be reflected by another point in that void in order to be self-aware. And that now creates a radius, which creates a universe, which also creates a series of possible points within that universe, but also a series of possible vectors. And it all comes from reciprocity. I see you, you see me, we have a universe. And because we have that universe, and I see you and you see me, energy can get reflected back and forth between us. Now imagine that blown into an ecosystem. In our Maya Riviera here, Mexico, that we've been talking about, there are 7,300 species of plants and animals that we know of in a Mayan jungle. Imagine how many corners, how many places energy can be stored within that ecosystem. How many interactions can play around with that energy and reflect it back and forth among them before it gets, some of it, not exactly lost. Once again, it goes into the planet, the environment, the soil, the water systems. It's all connected. And because it's all connected, we can view it laterally. We can, look at it from any angle and still find coherence, congruence, as long as we're looking for it. So we really think that the second law is key to economics. Energy, how does it move? And whether it's entropy or syntropy, the focus is balance. We are looking for balanced systems, whether it's through dissipating energy, a warm coin into a glass of water, the heat dissipates into the water, then into the glass, then into the larger system until everything's at the same temperature. But there are also integrating forces that create balance, like ecosystems. We are walking ecosystems. We think we are singularities, and we are, definitely. But we are a singularity made of a collective. Our minds, our bodies, everything we are doing is because there are trillions of smaller beings that are sentient that somehow manage to synchronize into a living being. This is social intelligence, and it's vital to syntropy, to a balance of the system that favors integration of intelligence, of nourishment, of diversity, including consciousness, as part of those propositions of diversity, no? And again, all this has important implications for us in economics. It has important implications because in economics, because that's how we produce everything we need, whether it's technology, plastics, anything. All of our technology, all of our resources come from nature. You know, we're making this call right now because we understand physical laws of nature, and we've applied them, or at least some smart people have, and we all use them. No? But it's still nature. It goes back always to natural capitals. And those natural capitals are founded on amazing principles that are, even in chaos theory, not exactly, they won't do exactly what we need them to do or what we want them to do, but we know the probabilities of something happening. Anyway, I'm sorry, I have got the conversation a little bit.
Keep going, keep going.
So once we apply this to economics, we start to see that reciprocity is as important in economics as it is everywhere else in the management of energy, in the efficient management of energy. Reciprocity, again, we have really we have really screwed up our definitions of things, no? Including evolution. Evolution, yes, there is competition, but there is always a balance again between syntropy and entropy. There's a balance between collaboration and competition. It's impossible for an ecosystem to survive if everyone in that ecosystem is completely focused on competing and killing each other constantly. I mean, there is not enough energy, I think, in the planet to support an ecosystem where everybody is killing each other constantly. And that doesn't mean that we're not part of a trophic system where nourishment flows like energy does by integrating and dissipating. We die, and our energy dissipates into more basic ingredients that the ecosystem now can use, and the energy goes back, let's say, to net. And the problem for us is timing, because we're very short-lived beings. So we really, and even if we are short-lived beings, and our civilizations are really young compared to the planet and compared to the universe, we can still have foresight, and we can still think ahead of what could happen. We can simulate things because we have an understanding that is amazing, that is not in sync with how we are being governed, how we're governing ourselves. We love this quote of we have Paleolithic emotions, feudal institutions and governance, yet we have technology of gods. We have vital platforms fighting each other for dominance, while at the same time we can model proteins and think up of galaxies, and So we need to, the coherence that we're all talking about in every respect is both entropic and syntropic. And it's a balance where we seem to have a saying, because we have free will to an extent, and that free will needs a purpose. There is a purpose to it. We are tensors within a system that holds. I love this definition in, I don't know if you ever saw that movie Soul. It's a children's movie that gave me the best definition ever of what we are, which is we are the center where the different fields that we belong to intersect. A quantizable fields, which means measurable, which for quantum mechanics means if you measure something, it changes. Yes, it changes because you have now a point of view. And so you and I belong to many different fields. We belong, of course, to a gravitational field from the Earth and to different electromagnetic fields, but we also belong to economic fields. We were talking about this with Forrest yesterday. We're in the same economic field as Chase Manhattan Bank, but we don't ripple in that field. We don't have enough mass or energy to ripple within it. But we're also resonating fields in economic fields that are closer to us. And in those fields that are closer to us, we have a lot more saying. And we are bigger tensors, let's say, of these possible realities within a smaller economic field, or maybe a more connected one, because also non-locality we know is a fact. Anyway, I'm going all over the place, I guess, but entropy to syntropy means just balance. A balance between how energy dissipates and how energy integrates. And we have a say in that balance, at least in our short lifespans, and perhaps in our short foresight into what we can transcend into as a civilization, as endowment to our children, our grandchildren. We can ripple. We have some say in it. And we have some say in it because our cells have a lot of say in who we are today. Imagine those trillions of little beings, they control in many ways, or contribute more than control, your mind, your digestion, your breathing, everything else. So how can we not be relevant? We are obviously relevant. But we are relevant as far as we understand social intelligence and reciprocity within that field of social intelligence, or those fields of social intelligence, one of which is economic. In any life project, whether you're a tree or a bee or a human being, there is an economic set or a series of economic sets that we belong to, as light turns into glucose, glucose turns into tissue, tissue turns into food, food turns into more tissue, that turns into food, that goes back into the soil. It's really quite amazing. And it's really quite amazing that we have now the opportunities to understand it through AI, through the internet. To me, I was born in 1971, so to me, the fact of having in the palm of my hand the knowledge of all humankind to just click and ask things is something out of a science fiction, no? And of course, when I was a kid, there was no Walmart, there was no internet, there was no Amazon. So paradigms can change greatly. And we can help change them. And if we focus into what energy should be doing for us, because we understand how it flows, it's really, again, it's really quite crazy that we would bring, for example, it seems to me, for example, energy, electric energy. It's like a monoculture, being produced somewhere really far from here, and then brought here through unnecessary logistics to a place that already has all that energy. It's like buying, you can produce tomatoes here, 10 meters from my house, but we're bringing them from Sinaloa, this ecosystem is receiving enough energy to sustain itself, and to sustain our lives, even very comfortably and more than comfortably, luxuriously. So it's just a question of mindsets and thinking laterally and understanding what the letter to Santa Claus is. This is very syntropic, because in entropy, one of the amazing things about the symmetries between entropy and syntropy, they're supersymmetrical, is that entropy goes from past to present to future. You drop something, it breaks, you can't unbreak it. Energy has flown or has flowed out of that glass, and anyway, in syntropy, which is supersymmetrical, energy flows backwards from future to present to past. That means for us, not that the time is clicking backwards, but that life is already looking into future life. It wants to keep being alive. And that future life is pulling evolution, is pulling intelligence towards better solutions, intelligent solutions. There's a vision of every life project towards remaining alive. And maybe being, from generation to generation, better at it. I'm sorry, I will stop a little bit. And
adapting and evolving.
Yes, adapting and evolving, which strangely enough, when you start also looking at the lateral possibilities of social intelligence, means love. Perhaps one of the nicest and clearest definitions of love for me is being or wanting to be the best version of yourself. That is a definition of evolution. You want to be a better version of yourself, whether it's in your own lifetime or in concurrent ones. And you apply your experience and your knowledge and all your capacities, including those that you don't really control, like DNA, in order to make that happen. And if you want to go that way, well, it's a loving solution, by all means. And then on another train of thought, it's also a comfortable one, because the more efficient the system is, the less you have to fight with it, the more comfortable you can become. So there's also an element here of the carrot is that, yes, you will be more comfortable because now you've adapted to the mosquitoes, to the heat, to whatever the environment throws at you, and you can live comfortably. And in physics also, there is this least resistance path, because energy wants to flow in the most efficient ways. So I don't think that we are screwed. I think some of us are, for sure. I think that we are evolving. We are a young species in a young path, and that path becomes clear to some, and it's not as clear to others. And that's the part of evolution and the part that becomes more entropic, where you can't really find the correct path, and you end up being part of the system, but by being fooled, by being, perhaps we are our food, of course, but some elements within the trophic system have it rougher than others, for sure. And I think that we are in a process, an unfortunate process of growth with lots of growing pains. And as far as we can acknowledge where we are and who we are and what we're dealing with, energy and all of this that we've been talking about, we can find the correct path, both individually, collectively as a species, collectively as small groups that can make this happen by catalyzing each other instead of just transacting into it, or trying to transact into it.
And removing scarcity and speculation and all these entropic overheads and converting them into syntropy and efficiency and optimization and growth and evolution for everybody, so that everybody can participate, no? So we're basically proposing a new economic model that's designed for regenerative and mindful innovation, aiming to establish a stable, resilient, efficient, and fair source of collective natural human wealth. And we say natural human because we consider our initiative the Human Nature Collective, where we work together with nature as one, which we are. And we base everything, it's deeply rooted in scientific principles, biomimicry, mathematics, and universal patterns of growth, of energy transfers, everything Enrique has been saying. So basically, our business model is modeled on nature itself and how nature optimizes the flow and interaction between elements and energy in order to grow and continue living and thriving. And it's very interesting the insights that Enrique has been getting from the pilots, and I'll let you talk about that, Enrique. In the farm here, we're actually in a farm, a Syntropic farm here in Cancun, and just observing nature and how nature grows and evolves provides a perfect blueprint to develop a new way of doing things for the benefit of everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. What you see behind me is an actual farm, one of four that we designed and developed through 13 years of pilots. This was barren almost land. It's crossed by three high tension lines. It's between two very large highways. And it's in a place in the world where there's very little soil. The soils here are very young, and so we have mother rock, and then a little bit of organic matter, and there's no subsoil, the stratified soil that you would need to really. And yet it's a very, what we're saying, super biodiverse place with tons of water. We have one of the largest, perhaps the largest underground river system in the world under the Yucatan Peninsula. Something around 1,000 miles of waterways running below the peninsula, which is itself surrounded by water. No? And so this farm now has over 200 species of plants and animals. And during the pilots had around 90 to 100 crops growing simultaneously in something like 15 acres, 8 hectares. And some of the crops are regular things that we eat, and some of the crops are native to this area and are not used at this point. Of those 7,300 species we were talking about, for example, about 600 of them are of nourishment or medicinal importance. And because they have been forgotten, we are not using them, and they're here and they grow very easily in the jungle itself with very little management. So in the pilots, we focused on 13 years of pilots, which is massive. We tried to create the whole economic set, the part that brings all of this to market, but not just to market, it integrates the customer into the value chain. Because we are in the value chain. If you're in a trophic field, you are part of it. And if you extract yourself from it, like we do when people today, we transcend and you get embalmed and then put into a box and then put into cement. And why don't you just give your body back to where it came from, no? Back into an energy system that needs it because of this reciprocity that we were talking about. So customers, of course, want to eat clean food. They want to eat local food. They understand this idea of squeezing the efficiencies by squeezing out Lalo was saying, the entropic overheads, speculation, unnecessary logistics, intermediation, hoarding of product. And once you produce it locally, And not that everything needs to be produced locally. We brought lots of stuff from other parts of the country and even the world in order to have complete pantries that we would deliver door to door throughout the pilot, which in the case of the company that delivered door to door, with an interface towards the customer of a sort of like a concierge of health and nourishment. And so anyway, we took over about 4% of the whole organic market in Cancun and the Maya Riviera within a year, with no marketing, not a single square foot of a store. And it was really because, again, people want to eat right, people want to have better lives, they want to be more connected to where their food comes from. All of this is true, but there needs to be a system behind it. The customer can't take over the investment into the value chains, all of the training and organization that goes into a value chain of this sort, the measurement, and of course, Mayan producers are diminished for one. There's very few people who want to live in rural communities today and produce food, and they're diminished also in their capacities, even though they have tons of land and tons of water and tons of biodiversity. So there's obviously a missing link, and we have strived to be that link, to be that a articulating factor that catalyzes the syntropic and the entropic into a more syntropic balance. Anyway, the 13-year pilots gave us the possibility now of what we are doing. They helped us build a model, and I like to say that this farm has been a co-author in the model. And I'd like to say that in the past few months, my AIZ has been a co-creator of the model. And much before that, the autocatalytic set that we've created with Lalo and the other squids, this is a collective effort, and it's a collective solution that is networked by all of our experiences and all of our life projects. No? And now we have a business model that we know we can create a syntropic regenerative economic sector that is symmetrical to our 13 years of pilots. In the next 13 years, we know we can create a multi-billion-dollar economic sector that is squeezing out entropic overheads and increasing syntropic efficiencies, including the fact that a tree is not just an asset, it's not just a wood. You can reproduce that tree, create amazing forests from it, create a culture that nourishes that forest, and from that create all kinds of possibilities, including living in that beautiful forest, selling things that forest produces, transforming those things that get produced. It's really quite logical and super efficient, also as compared to what we have today, which is really chaotic. But again, these are growing pains. We don't want to start any of what we're doing from a position of judgment, and we don't want to start it from a position of we love the idea of no dogma and no doctrine because it allows us to look at everything. It allows us to look at ancestral knowledge. It allows us to look at empirical knowledge. It allows us to look at cultural knowledge. It allows us to look, of course, at scientific and academic knowledge and economic knowledge. It allows us to have a broader sense of the solutions that we can have on the table. And maybe those solutions, once you put them all together, can be of different relevance to different people. You can choose and pick and choose what works in order to create economies. The greatest example of this is Cancun. Cancun is Miami with Caribbean beaches. And when it was designed, it has my age, it's 53. And when Cancun was designed, someone should have taken those people to like Management 101 or Entrepreneurship 101 course, because it had an amazing differentiator. It had an amazing natural setting, all the ecosystems that happen here, and an amazing cultural background. The Mayas have been here for thousands of years. And instead of taking that and using it as a differentiator to enhance the value and the uniqueness of the spot, they created Miami with Caribbean beaches. Now, we can still work a lot with the peninsula because the peninsula is a big place. It's about half the size of California, about almost 2/3 the size of Italy. It's a big place. And, I think there's like 40 million people in Italy, 70 million in California. There are 4 million people in the Yucatan Peninsula. So we know this is an important place and we know it's going to grow. And we still have a chance to go back to, entrepreneurship 101 and say,
and we receive more. I mean, we're in the top, I think, 5 tourist destinations in the world. We receive like 20 million people a year.
yeah,
And it's
the
only going to
relevance,
grow,
yeah, the relevance of this place is quite amazing. There's about 1 million Mayan speaking people in the area itself. They own more than half the land because of Mexico's peculiar Ejido culture, which is amazing. Half of Mexico is communally owned, mostly by native populations. This Mexico is enlightened, and ejidos and this form of ownership and stewardship of because also in that half of Mexico reside 80 or 85% of our natural resources and environmental services. So our model is very focused on this possibility of collective ownership, which is also not, for those who will jump into communism, socialism, and all this, it's, the stock market is collective ownership. The stock market is collective investment into companies, into organizations, into business ideas. This is like a smaller set of a stock market where you directly invest and participate and get not just money, you get capitals, because as we were saying, the tree is not just an asset, it's a capital. It's a multidimensional source of value. It produces food, it produces shade, it produces wood, it produces forests. And so once you create the culture around this tree that is very productive, and you realize that the forests that favor this tree are also very productive, and you create a culture around it, it becomes wealth. So we go from assets to capitals to wealth. And wealth is resilient. Wealth is, again, multidimensional. It's more probabilistic. It's not, if we don't do this, we're going to break. No, you're not going to break, because you have an ecosystem that produces 90 different crops. If you have a bad cycle of corn, you have another 89 crops to rely on. Plus, you can live here, so you have the real estate. Plus, you have visitors who come and experience it. Plus, you have grants. Plus, you have, you are again creating these biodiverse ecosystems, in this case within an economic field, that allow for energy to be stored and to be transferred in so many different ways in a very efficient way, maintaining that energy within the closest system to you. Now, this that drives customers wild, because of course you make an effort every day to make your money however you do, and then you buy things you need. And if those things you need, if you buy a kilo of tortillas and part of that money goes to a coyote, and part of that money goes to unnecessary logistics, and part of the money goes to a huge conglomerate that produces a seed, and then another
plus all
one
the
that
banking
produces
fees, no, in the transfer.
exactly. That's the entropic side of our economy today. In the end, a tortilla, which is the most Mexican thing you could possibly have, produced by corn, again, one of the most Mexican things you can have, you pay maybe 40 pesos for a kilo of tortillas in the supermarket, or 20 pesos for a kilo of tortillas in the supermarket, and a very small percentage of that remains within your ecosystem, within your field. It's not going back to your neighbors, it's not going back to your environment, it's not cleaning your water. And this is a very entropic. It's the energy dissipating too far away from us. So we are super pragmatic. I know that this is very expansive, but it's as expansive as speaking of hydrogen cars or even electric cars. You're not going to go into the nitty-gritty and understand all the physics of an electric car, of a hydrogen car. You just know it's not going to spill out CO2 and sulfur and all of this, and it's going to be very comfortable, and it's going to be very nice. No? This is what we're creating with the Human Nature Collective. It's you can participate and benefit from all that we're doing in very joyful way by also integrating your life project into it, because you can become subject to investment, subject to incubation and acceleration of your own ideas, and not just that, but within a system that will put you close to an autocatalytic set of amazing people who are going to help you do it, and you're going to help them because we're co-developing. This is Lalo and I. I mean, it seems theoretical, but we met 9 months ago, 10 months ago, and we've merged our businesses, and we are deploying the MVP for the Green Squids Initiative, which is a 13-year initiative to create this economic set that we were talking about. It starts with an MVP called the Mayan Revival for all origins and all territories. And that starts with bringing all of this that we're saying to regular people who come here traveling, looking for meaning, looking for content, looking for experience, suddenly finding that you can be in a bioimmersive spot, being somehow part of something so much larger because it incorporates the whole area authentically, a regeneration not just of the environment but also of the culture and society of through not just economics but social mobility and opportunity, because in our process you go through a grant and you're eligible for investment, whether you were initially a social entrepreneur, whether you've had a bank account, which now can include that set of people in Mexico who own half of the country, who are currently, even though they own half of the land and water and all these amazing resources, are not subject to credit today. They're not subject to investment today. And thankfully, because if they were, they would have been swindled out of their land already, no? So this is a model where we can make great strides in every respect.
Talk a little bit about the people, places, production, prosperity, permanence, which is, part of the model. I think, a lot of it of what we're doing is going back to basics, and clearly in, I don't know, 700 years or so, we've lost our way. And we need to go back to it. And we need to go back to a good relationship with nature and with all our brothers and sisters, animals, plants, water, elements, etc. And nature is so abundant, incredibly abundant, but we have been sold that we are in a scarcity land, which is completely the opposite. It can be incredibly bountiful and abundant, but we just know how to organize properly and how to provide the methodologies and the frameworks and platforms so that we can actually thrive.
If I might step in
Sure.
for a moment. This is, as you have said, expansive. I'm receiving this as, in some ways, a new operating system for humanity, which is also ancient. And so
Exactly.
we could literally talk for 4 hours about all the ways in which syntropic principles are being applied now and in your pilots of the last 13 years. So maybe this is a part one, or maybe part two is that people go and explore your websites and learn more about these projects. There are a few pieces I'd like to appreciate. I would like to appreciate that the foundation is wisdom, Mayan wisdom, indigenous knowledge, and partnership with land, such that the understandings that we can call syntropic have not been lost and can now be brought forward. And it sounds to me like you are very deeply in collaboration with the Mayan people, of whom there are approximately 1 million on the Yucatan Peninsula. And then you make the point that Cancun, even though it is Miami with Caribbean beaches, uh, actually because of this, it draws 20 million people from around the world into the possible experience of the healed and awakened world. Now,
Correct.
if you stay within the concrete structures, maybe you won't see it. However, it's there. It's here. Just like the healed and awakened world is actually everywhere to be experienced if we orient ourselves. So the time is coming through initiatives like the Human Nature uh, Collective,
Collective.
right? And it is a collective. That's right. Uh, yeah, the time is coming when there'll be more and more opportunities to plug in. Uh, I also I want to appreciate and maybe you already have a set of principles for how to do syntropic design. I know there's a lot of wisdom in the farming agriculture world around syntropic agriculture that is starting to travel out. Um, and I'll share a few that I've been hearing as I've been distilling some of what you've been sharing, especially Enrique. Um, because of how I heard you, I heard the word entrepreneurship. And so the business schools have been teaching entrepreneurship rather than syntropreneurship. So then I would offer maybe there are some principles for an enlightened business school, which is coming without a doubt. And I get within 10 or 12 years intuitively, I'm feeling we're looking at mid to late 2030. So let me share the principles, the keys, if you will, to syntropy that I'm hearing, not all of which you've spoken, but all of which have been present in your transmission. So there are the words, there are the concepts, and then there's the energy that's like streaming out of you, both. And you embody it because you've been living it for 13 years, at least, or 53 years, as the case may be. So here's
Correct.
what I've been getting. And we could argue about the order, so I won't even say that it has to be this order. But let me offer that maybe it starts with awakeness or an impulse to be more awake, more connected, more in relationship with life and
More
what's true and
present.
what's real. Yeah, presence. And then there's some interest in emergence, dancing with complexity and the deep intelligence of life because life knows what she's doing and life is complex. And because we can't understand with our left brains exactly all the ways that life works, we find ourselves in a dance where life is teaching us. And in the process, solutions emerge, new knowledge emerges. And this is possible because of our love and our willingness to be in reflective, reciprocal relationship and to be taught and to learn. And of course, it could be a long list. I mentioned partnership with nature. That has to be one of the keys. And it requires the love as well, the love for nature. We can't be in a healthy partnership if it's not predicated on
Absolutely.
love. And you mentioned that this leads to an economy that actually works, whether we call it an enlightened economy. I would say that an economy that is entropic will eventually not work anymore because it has lost its ability to be organized. So we need syntropy, we need syntropreneurship, we need generosity to be a principle, not just the extractive impulse that has been well expressed. Uh, I would say without vision, the people perish. I'm quoting there. So we need vision. We need a vision of the future. You talk about how syntropy involves coming from the future. And maybe we don't see exactly what it looks like, but we can feel it. And we have enough vision that something else is possible. And we lean in and we partner with emergence and we get there. I'll just give a few more. Designing for mutuality, because all of these systems are so interwoven. If we're not designing for mutuality, we're losing energy, hence entropy.
Correct.
Um, Deep listening, I'm going to offer that this works better to the extent that we can open ourselves very wide and listen to the many voices of nature, not just the human voices that maybe we've been trained to hear, and the human languages that we've learned to understand, but there are the natural languages. Nature is communicating so much more than we have ever realized, even perhaps the most awakened among us. And wholeness, of course, collaboration, transparency. There are other details that matter a lot in terms of the implementation. But I see your heads nodding, so I assume I'm onto something here. This is a new operating system, and we can install it now.
Correct.
Absolutely. And you are right on the money, or on the syntropy. It does begin with awareness. It begins with self-awareness, which is why our investment model, which is fractal, which means it's self-similar at different scales. And the first scale is our common denominator, which is the life project, what we were talking about before. Whether you're a human being or a bee or a tree, you have a life project. And if you want to remain alive, it's a regenerative life project. You want to wake up every morning, eat, sleep, rest, different cycles, of course. But if you plan to remain alive, it needs to be a regenerative one. And if you plan to evolve, it needs to be syntropic. There needs to be an evolutionary loving process of being better, and not just with yourself, but with your environment. We love a quote. You are you and your context, no? From José Ortega and Gasset, no? Yo soy yo y mi circunstancia. You cannot be yourself if there's not a context to you. And so you have to be as kind to your context as you are to yourself in order for this to work. So you're absolutely right about that. And so our model begins with self-awareness, which we have this series of grants that are part of an investment stack where we start with the most expansive business units first, as you will also very well saying, in the end, things work out, and Cancun has worked out to be a really great place to launch this because of all the attention and all the people already coming here, and all the transition, the different transitions that have happened in the travel industry, where now even in non-inclusive people are looking for content, for meaning, for purpose, for something that makes the trip transformative in some way in their lives, much more meaningful. And why not? You're investing a lot into it. And what you're mostly investing, apart from any kind of money, is your time, your free time, which is begun to be more precious than anything else. So we are honoring this by connecting, hopefully, with all these people. What is you're seeking is seeking you, no? So we're seeking them, they're seeking us. They're seeking this meaning, this purpose, and we're seeking them to seed what we are doing, like seed bombs into an ecosystem, which is a lot of how we regenerated this place through seed bombs that you don't exactly know what they're going to do. But if the seed bomb is correct and you do it at the right time, the probabilities of it becoming something are quite high, and of it surprising you as to what it will become. No? So for us, the self-awareness is life projects. And there's a process there that we honor and we nourish from the very beginning in many different ways, which we will go into perhaps later. But then that becomes emergence, as you also very well stated, which for us is the autocatalytic set. Autocatalytic sets happen all over nature, and they're probably also one of the main ingredients in life. No? In our syntropic farm, what we do is we design an autocatalytic set, and we say, what would an ecosystem, the perfect ecosystem for dragon fruit look like? What does dragon fruit need? Does it need shade? Does it need substance? In this case, dragon fruit also needs a host because it needs to attach to another tree that is living, to a tree that is living. And so if it needs nitrogen, you need plants that are going to draw in bacteria that are going to fix nitrogen from the environment into the soil. If you're in a place like us where you don't have soils, you're going to need plants that break the rock and start creating soil, lots of biomass for sure. So you have all these service plants that are also crops for us in many ways, but that create an ecosystem, an autocatalytic set that if you put it there and leave it alone, it's going to do something amazing. You're not going to control it. That's not the point. It's not going to let itself be controlled either, but you are going to foster it and nourish it in the beginning. And again, it's going to have amazing results. So imagine bringing that into the social realm and saying, if you put Lalo and Enrique together in a room, what's going to happen? They're going to start talking, and whatever comes out of that is probably going to be interesting, at least doable, absolutely, because a it's a question sometimes, again, going back to love of chemistry first, then a life project. First you, even in loving, in partnership relationships, whether it's business partnership or loving partnerships, the first thing is chemistry. There needs to be this chemical element that draws us together, which in many cases is also purpose. And I'll go into later how we interface with ancestral knowledge and the Toyota production system at the same time through the Eightfold Path, the Buddhist Eightfold Path, no? But which begins with the right view or the right purpose. So once we have the right view, the right purpose, there may be chemistry for this emergence of an autocatalytic set. And then it turns out we have the same life project, which makes it have a strength and structure. So that then flows into love, into, okay, we like each other, we are in the same page, we are going in the same direction. So how do we make this journey amazing for both of us? And how do we make it, so that
As
we
best
both
as it can
accomplish,
be for both of us. That is what we've
exactly,
been creating for a year together.
and
You know,
how we
we
accomplish, exactly, sorry.
we started 9 months ago, and initially it was very transactional, like, oh, what you can add to my business, what I can add to you, and it was very minimal. And with time, we basically became an autocatalytic set, and now ended up merging and created this. I mean, just from my personal perspective of living what Enrique is telling, my business became exponentially richer in design, in value, in potential, in incredibleness, just in every single way. It got incredibly enriched. And at first I was a little bit, hesitant. But as you well said, Jeff, I opened up to receive and flow, and the catalysis has been absolutely incredible.
And this is multiplied because you are having, and we are very grateful that you have us today here, 2 of the first 8 in the first autocatalytic set, and each one of us has brought their own networks, and so there's 100 people already in our larger set, engaged, integrated. We know there's a chemistry, we know there's a life project. We're in the loving process of putting it together, of integrating it together through the Green Squids model. Because the Green Squids, just going back to clarify, we're an investment operator. Now we're a Syntropic investment operator. We started as an impact investment operator. And we're really 3 things at once, because we're the operator that has designed the model and now is implementing it, which is the Green Squids initiative, this 13-year push towards the
regenerative
economy that we're creating. So this is exponential, but it's also fractal, because it does take into consideration and it is built upon the life project and the autocatalytic set, whether it's a human set or a set here in the farm, producing a wealth for the whole ecosystem. No? So I know we have to go soon, so I think this may be a very good spot to. I think someone wrote that, Jeff. So I think this is a good spot to perhaps to ground what we are doing in terms of how you can engage with it. The Human Nature Collective is an open source community, and it has 3 different aspects to it, because we solve our lives in different ways. One is the operators, the green squids, which is a global operator and a local operator, which can be many different local operators depending on how we expand. And this is where lifestyles like or livelihoods like Lalos and myself, where we're entrepreneurs, we like to have boots on the ground, we like to sell, we like to produce, we like people that are very engaged with producing, selling, doing the physical and the practical execution of an operation of the whole thing. Then the second set is investors. And investors is a very plural set for us, because we are creating precisely an investment fund called Reciproca, with the accent on the I, and the accent for us in everything we're doing means awareness. It's an aware fund, self-awareness. It's a self-aware fund. And part of that fund is going to be collective. At least we are aiming in the next 13 years for 60% of it to be crowdfunded, and to be a multi-billion-dollar fund that acts as a sovereign fund, in the sense that it makes decisions independently of the larger economic set, because it's focused on our economic set, on our regenerative syntropic economic set, into which we're all investing time, effort, money, etc. And so the third part of this human nature collective, the executive operating side, the investment of blended capitals and inclusive capitals, including land, knowledge, etc.
Philanthropy, grants of different types, etc.
Exactly, philanthropy, grants. And the third set is crucial. We call it the O2 councils. This is the stewardship set. This is how we bring in the people who have solved their lives through caring for the environment, through caring for others, through caring for education, which is crazy to us that they're not in the economic set as that it in itself tells me how inefficient our current economy is, because this is the most reflective matter within the ecosystem. So for us, how is it reflective? Well, for one thing, people who really know the ecosystem can help us create a very syntropically productive economy, because they have been using this for ages. They have been using all these resources from the jungle. They know the cycles. Absolutely. But then also through authenticity and through plurality, through listening, as you very well also mentioned in this entropic set, they give us, of course, an inner reputational system that allows us to have perceived value. This is our organic seal, our fair trade seal, our everything that we are doing by including transparently the scaring livelihoods and lifestyles into what we're doing gives us efficiency, and also gives us transparency and humility and all of these other ingredients that will hopefully make the model very attractive to people to invest in, to live in, to consume from, or nourish from more than consume from. So I'd like to end with that. This is a very open source and very inclusive of both capitals on lifestyles and livelihoods project. And it's very ambitious, but we're up to the challenge, no?
And very efficient, because it de-risks the investments as you progress. Like every single component is designed to de-risk investments as we go along. So it becomes a lot more resilient and perdurable.
Absolutely. Every fractal stage is an energy state. And every energy state brings with it new abilities and opportunities, new solvencies, social and economic solvencies, and new executive capacities as we learn together how to do this. And so we keep evolving in every, why are some beings amazingly adaptable? Because they evolve very quickly. So for us, this fractal efficiency is also very efficient in the research and validation protocols of everything in our model, from economics to production, in every fractal, in our progressions, in every fractal step, we learn something and we apply it to make just like we regenerated this land. There were pioneer plants that opened the way for a next generation of plants that needed a lot more than the pioneer ones. And those together created the conditions for a next generation. And eventually you get a huge and amazingly biodiverse forest because there was this progression, natural progression, ecological progression, and we are imitating that in economics and in investment.
Great. So that is the perfect image. Where this leads is the, let's say, maximally diverse, maximally flourishing expression of human and non-human activity and partnership on this planet. And you made a very important point, Eduardo, about risk, which I had not considered before. In an investment context, one hedges against risk, one hedges against entropy, the possibility that resources will be dissipated and not do productive work and generate a return on that investment. So with these design principles, with this operating system, actually the risk equation gets somehow turned around. And even from a conventional economic standpoint, this becomes the investment that you can't not do. You can't not invest, start with a double negative, in Syntropy.
Exactly.
Actually, there's an imperative, not only like an evolutionary imperative, there's also an existential imperative to basically install this operating system, make the investment of our time, our energy, and love. And to some extent, it's a little bit of a leap, maybe a leap of faith because it's new. People who are Mac users might not want to shift to a PC or the other way. But what you're offering is something beyond the Mac or the PC. And at some point, we're just going to need to give it a try.
It's a quantum computer.
Yeah,
There you go.
and again, I really appreciate the your comments, because you're right on spot. Risk now doesn't become something that we cross our fingers that doesn't happen. We know it's there and it's integrated into the system, and we are heading straight into it as we are heading straight into the wind. But with insight, with foresight, and with awareness, by being present. So yes, absolutely. It's a the investment is in a change of mindset, and there is so much validating our model because we can explain it forever, but there are so many. We have been amazed at how many resonant books, research, Nobel Prize winning research from every field, whether it's economics to biology, physics. It almost feels, of course, like again, we are only in tuned to what is already happening, and it's already happening to all of us. And what we're trying is to bring it together, and to give ourselves many different reasons to bring it together. As you were saying, I think this can become the next golden standard, or gold standard, because in the end, it's based on real land, on real resources, on real communities, on real capacities for life and resiliency, not just a shiny object.
Realness, a theme from our last episode. And I want to thank you, Enrique and Eduardo. I know we're coming up on time. Forrest, I want to thank you for kind of holding and tending this field of Syntropy. And I am really interested in what's been kind of cooking in you, if I may invite you to share that.
Yeah, I am. Well, I got to spend yesterday afternoon with Enrique and Eduardo, and today receiving you all. I mean, I experienced, but both of you is so well able to articulate what's always been here latent underneath underneath the muck or underneath the distortion, underneath the noise. And the level to which you all have codified this really it illuminates an architecture that's ever present and always been here and feels deeply sacred. And it feels like the more I listen to you all, the more I know that we can let go into something much bigger that's holding us. And I just get this feeling of it's like if we can just allow ourselves to relax into the larger holding, I don't think we could overestimate what's possible. That's really the thing that happens for me. I feel like this conversation oftentimes is framed as like a return back to something, as a regression of some sorts. But to me, it feels like the liberation of our potential. And it feels like the allowing ourselves the gift of our own nature to flourish. And that nature expresses itself as life, it expresses itself as humans, it expresses itself as farms and oceans and jungles. And I just quite frankly don't think we have a clue of what's possible for us in this lifetime and in our experience. And um, it rallies a call in me to invite more people in. It's like, come on, everybody, like it's time. The time is now. It's here. Let's drop the old game and play the new one.
Yeah,
So
and there's a place for everybody.
that's right. That's right.
I love this. You said allowing ourselves the gift. We are living in a very gracious and benign planet, or time in this planet, and we have amazing capabilities and amazing knowledge of what we can do, and what can happen if we integrate and connect, and allow ourselves to be alive and to be sentient and to be intelligent together, uh, and collaborate instead of compete, which doesn't mean that there's no competition. There is healthy competition in any ecosystem, but there is balance at the end of that. And part of that balance is also letting go of hoarding, letting go of all these things that don't allow us to really accept the gift. If you're living in an inert apartment somewhere where you can't even see a tree, uh, you are missing out. You really are.
Well, it feels like a time for a breath, and I don't know if we call it a pause. It doesn't feel like a stop to me. It doesn't feel like an ending. It feels like a seeding and an opening. And I know that we're for today and for this exploration, we're coming to. I'll just call it a pause. But I want to thank you guys, Enrique and Eduardo, and of course Jeff. Um, yeah,
Thank you for Thank you very much, Forrest. We're very happy to share this, and there's a lot more, as you can see. It took me a long time with Enrique. After our conversations, I would tell him, I understood everything you said, but if somebody asked me right now, like what we talked about, I wouldn't know where to start. Um, it's a very comprehensive model, and it's it's very amazing. So we're very happy to continue sharing at another time. And thank you very much for your time and for inviting us.
of course, of course.
Yes, it's a good pause. Music needs it between notes, and yet it can be overwhelming. But in that overwhelming like wholeness, there's so much resonance. It everything about it feels. We call it cognitive success. No, it's like feeling that every decision you've ever made brought you here, and this is where you must be, and this is where happiness is, where that opportunity, to be ourselves and to enjoy who we are, is. And it's a very joyful moment, I think, and more than anything, what we want is to share this, and to make it accessible, and logical to onboard and operate for most people.
some words came to me, perhaps for conclusion. If it seems big, so this is for the listener, if what you're hearing seems big, if it seems overwhelming, it's because it is. It's big. It overflows our frameworks of understanding, and yet it is essential. So I invite us to allow our minds to be blown, our hearts to be blown open, and also to give ourselves the time to integrate, to allow the pieces to find their way together into the harmonious and syntropic collaboration that is and must be expressed. And we'll be sharing links, I imagine, to these different initiatives and opportunities to get involved. So thank you and much love to all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.